Alrighty, so today we're going to learn how to create a hand rig for a custom hand we're going to make today. And first things first, you're going to want to save your file. So name it whatever you'd like, but make sure to Control S and save that thing. You do not want your progress getting reset for that. And then you're going to want to add a plane using Shift A, go to Edit Mode, and then hit M and then hit collapse. This will create one vertex at the center. And then we can go to modifiers and then hit skin to create a little cube around it, and then subdivision surface to make it rounder and add more vertices to it. Now you're going to want to click Alt Z, which will turn it sort of invisible-ish so you can see the vertex in the center. Now you want to use E to extrude and Control A to shrink and enlarge basically your points on this skin that you're making. You're just gonna move it however which way you need to make it look like a hand. Alright, now that you're complete, make sure to apply all the modifiers that you have in the tab there. Alright, now I like to add subdivision surface just to make it more smoothened down. Next, we're going to click on armature and create our little bone structure for our hand. Alright, so I like to have the little dot at the end sticking right outside of the hand. Then in viewport display, I like to turn in front on for bone so that you can see your bone in front of the hand. Alright, so use E to extrude from the bone to add another bone, and I'm using it to make sort of a wrist motion. As you'll see in pose mode here, I can move the wrist and then I can move the hand part. Alright, now I'm going to extrude a finger bone, and I'm going to click Alt P, then click disconnect bone. Now I'm just going to real quick position the finger bone correctly, and then I'm just going to click Shift D to duplicate the finger bone to all the rest of the fingers, and you just adjust it from there. And if you did it correctly, you should see the dotted line for each finger bone connects back to the middle bone of the hand. Now you want our fingers to have more than one joint, so for the thumb, I'm going to click subdivide. Now it only needs one subdivision, but for the other fingers, you're going to click subdivide and then add the number of cuts to 2. This should allow for 3 little joints on the fingers. Now I just rename my armature to hand rig and then my mesh to hand just for organizing sake. Then I'll click on hand and then shift select your armature. Then you'll click Control P and then with automatic weights. This will automatically pair your bones with your mesh to create a little, posable figure. Now it's time to create our action bone transition thing. First step, we're going to pull up the timeline a little bit. We're going to change it to dope sheet. Then we'll change the dope sheet to action editor. This will allow us to create new actions for us to transition to. We're going to click new. Then we'll type in, our name for our action. I'm just going to call it hand rig action. Then I'm going to go into pose mode and click A to select all the bones. Click I, the location, rotation scale, all that stuff for a keyframe. Now you want to move our frames to frame 10. And just double check now that you are in the action editor and not the timeline or dope sheet or whatever. Make sure you're on the correct action as well. And now it's time to start posing your second pose. I like to select Auto IK to help me out with this kind of stuff. And then I just kind of adjust the bones and joints to create a fist, as you'll see here. Also, a quick tip for this is that if you select a bone, you click R and then double tap Z, you can actually curl the fingers. Now you just create the fist. Don't worry about copying me exactly, just make your fist as best as you can. Now you're going to want to set a keyframe for this pose. So go back to your action editor, make sure you're on the 10th frame, and then click A in pose mode. Then click I and hit rotation, location, scale, properties, all that stuff. Now we're going to make a control bone. First you want to click Shift D on one of the bones, or you can add an armature. I like to just position it in a way so that it's rotated 9 degrees on the y-axis and it looks like it's kind of pointing away, so you can move it along the x-axis. And we're going to parent it to the bottom bone with keep offset, and you'll do this by clicking Control P. Now you want to go to pose mode for one of the finger bones. Now you want to click on bone constraints and add an action relationship. You want to make sure your target is your control bone, which will be your armature, and then it should be called fist curl if you renamed it. You'll rename that bone using F2. The issue we have now is that our bone axes are incorrect. They're like facing the complete wrong way. So the way to fix that is by using something called pole, or like changing the pole. You can do that by going into edit mode, then click on N. You can check the bone roll, okay? Oh, my bad, not pole, roll. But yeah, you want to set that to 0. And unfortunately, I still don't know how to solve this, but I can only get the x-axis and the z-axis facing up and side for that. I cannot get it to face the correct way, unfortunately, so you'll just have to go for that. So instead, we'll just have to change the channel to Y location and our target to local space. Local space is highly important. Make sure it's local space. Then you'll want to set your max to 0.1. That will be for the mini bone that we're controlling. And then you want to set your end frame to 10, which we did in our action editor. And the action we want to choose is our hand rig action. Every time it's at 0, it will be 0, and every time it's at 0.1, it will be on frame 10. Alright, now we gotta add a limit location to our bone in the bone constraints. We're gonna check everything, and since our bone is weird, we want to change to local space. Since it's, weird axes, we're gonna limit the Y location. Depends on which way your axes are, okay? So we'll limit it to 0.1. So as you can see now, it can move only a little bit, and then you can already see part of the bone already moving. Obviously, we don't want to have to copy that bone constraint, all that stuff. We don't have to copy that to every single bone each time. So we can select all the bones we're going to copy to, just select the last bone, which is the one that we want to copy, and then hit F3 and copy constraints to selected bones. This will make it so that all the other bones have the constraints now. And now, as you can see, you got yourself a moving fist. You can curl it, you can, do all that fun stuff, and it will transition between the actions. So you can use it for animating. I'm sure it's easier to have a fist turn into a fist, to a hand. You can do all sorts of stuff with this, and I'm going to try and use it a bit more. It will be pretty helpful for just making animating a lot faster. Thanks for watching, and I hope that you learned something new, or at least can use some of this knowledge to help you with some things. I was stuck on it for a little bit, and I just thought I'd share some of my knowledge with y'all. Peace.